Hi, I'm Cecilia Magalhães. This is me in my video simulacrum, crossing this huge Atlantic gap to say hello to you guys in Montreal. Today I will present the paper, The Book of Disquiet Archive, as a role-playing experiment, written by Professor Manuel Portela and myself. I would like to thank ELO for giving me the opportunity to deliver our communication, despite my absence. There was a bureaucratic nightmare involving my Brazilian passport, the Canadian visa, and my regular residence in Portugal. I'm terribly sorry I couldn't join you. Also, I would like to thank you for watching this video. I will talk about Humanidades Digitais and Literatura Eletrônica today. I will also talk about Fernando Pessoa, a major figure in our Portuguese literary canon. In particular, I will discuss his unfinished book, The Book of Disquiet, and the creative processes involved in the use of this digital simulator, the ELO Archive, idealized by Professor Portela himself. Doing a short introduction, our paper describes the attempt to bring together electronic literature practices and digital humanities methods in an integrated textual environment. The digital archive of the Book of Disquiet, or the ELO Archive, was published in December 2017. It was originally designed as a dynamic archive structured into two layers of interaction. One layer, which we describe as the representation layer, contains digital facsimiles of Fernando Pessoa's autographed documents, fragments of his unfinished work, the Book of Disquiet, written between 1913 and 1935, as well as the 4 transcribed critical editions produced between 1982 and 2012. The other layer, which we describe as the simulation layer, enables users to create new editions and write new fragments based on the digital textual materials from the Book of Disquiet. When interactors engage with the representation layer, they can read the work according to various sequences and compare the different expert editions that have been made of this work. When interactors engage with the simulation layer, they can enter the archive as editors or writers who can add their own content to the archive's database. In this way, the platform proposes a model for virtualizing Fernando Pessoa's Book of Disquiet, which simulates textual and bibliographic processes in the conceptual and material production of this work. By placing digital facsimiles in the context of their topographic transcriptions, the ELO Archive shows the relations of document to text and text to document. By placing both facsimiles and topographical transcriptions in the context of experts' editions, the platform further illuminates the relations of text to work and work to the text. Besides those features of representational simulation, the ELO Archive offers a set of functionalities of performative simulation that allow interactors to reconceptualize and rematerialize the work at editorial and authorial levels. This dynamic and social layer of the platform enables the re-editing, for instance, the selection, organization, and annotation of fragments, and rewriting of text, for instance, the creation of variations anchored in specific passages of the fragments. The simulation of literary performativity, encoded and programmed through the reader, book, editor, and author functions, is one of the conceptual and technical achievements of the ELO Archive. Talking about the state of art of digital archives and digital critical editions, despite their high value as teaching and research resources, many of these digital projects remain confined to the expert scholarly community. In ELO Archive, we experiment with Web 2.0 techniques in constructing a social edition where expert and common users, in their regular studying, reading, and writing practices, can engage in the creation and publication of new versions of the book. Within this reading, editing, and writing space, users are invited to engage with the Book of Disquiet by playing different roles instantiated by the platform functional structure as well as by the specific contexts related to its usage. The long-term aim of the current stage of development is to focus on how the role of the interactors is constrained by the functionalities and the interface of the LD archive on one hand, and to show how actual users in formal and informal contexts appropriate those functionalities on the other. We want to learn more about the affordances and constraints of the platform so that we can improve its design. But we also want to learn more about the nature of literary performance through the use of this role-playing textual environment. The LD archive thus provides a model of literary performativity that is also an open exploration of its own textual space of interaction. This is an ongoing investigation that will continue until 2020, and in this case I have to say I'm right about it now. It's my research. So this investigation adopts the concept of practice as a nexus that produces meaning through the different entities in play: subjects, artifacts, specialities, timings, processes. Following this idea, it was set an ethnographic component focused on capturing and handling qualitative and quantitative data based on users' reading, editing, and writing practices in the platform. For better data management, these practices were previously framed in three specific contexts of use of the LD archive: teaching, researching, and enjoyment. Each context will shape a digital focus group where interactors with varied backgrounds will work on the platform according to dynamic roles, developing activities focused on reading, editing, and writing process, of course. These activities will be carried out online after a step-by-step didactic presentation of the LD archive and its functionalities, in the form of short video tutorials and, when necessary, with video calls. During these activities, we intend to track the users' varied narratives inscribed into the platform structure, as well as to capture their impressions, understandings, intentionalities, difficulties, and so on. In this case, user data will be captured by working with keylogging track, screen records, semi-structured interviews, and group chats. Moreover, the digital editions, annotations, and other personal inscriptions will be valuable data for comparison and textual analysis. This multimedia data will be refined into our previous dataset structure, organized into three interconnected categories: user's profile, that it relates to variables like nationality, work location, professional background, reading interests, etc. Creative process, that is related to the platform usage, including the user's perceptions and access to the reader, author, book, and editor functions. And finally, the virtual editions themselves, that it's related to the discursive and narrative traces of users' creativity as expressed in the edition's order, selection, annotations, and so on. It's important to highlight that this structured mindset, based on digital ethnography and user experience methodological approach, needed previous empirical tests in a way to better understand the complexity of the creative practice in LD archive. Here, we will describe the first LD archive's structured experiments, which led us to a better understanding of the user's interaction with the platform. The data has been collected through specific activities where we have considered in particular the dynamic process of editing, annotating, glossing, and rewriting the texts. So the first experiment was called Disquiet Remix, and it was about teaching with and learning from the virtual editing functions of the platform. This first test section occurred on November 26 in 2017, in cooperation with the student fraternity Solar dos Capangas. 14 participants took part in the event, divided into 4 different work groups. This audience was mostly composed of undergraduate and graduated students from humanities at the University of Coimbra, although some of the participants were not related to the academic environment. The primary objective of this section was to test how each group could creatively interact with the platform by creating new virtual mini editions of the Book of Disquiet. In this case, each edition contained only 5 fragments chosen by the user groups. Each edition had to have a title and a selection criterion, which was explained in the presentation synopsis. The synopsis explained both the selection and the ordering principles. Also, the creation of the mini editions corresponded to the virtual edition function, but other functionalities of the platform, such as those programmed in the reading, document, and search interface, were explored in order to choose, compare, and select texts. The tasks required from the participants included open exploration of the platform, followed by registration as virtual editors, the creation of virtual groups, selection and collaborative annotation of the fragments, and collaborative writing of the presentation synopsis. Also, the oral presentation of the mini editions, including a brief description of the exploration and navigation of the platform for constructing the edition, as well as a general reflection on the particular reading practice encouraged by us using the platform. In this sense, each mini edition was defined according to variables such as theme, heteronomy, original critical edition, narrativity, and even the material characteristics of the facsimiles. The 4 groups had 2 hours to discuss, create their editions, and finally present them. For the most part, the presented results were based on the participants' previous ideas about Pessoa as an author who wanders through his heteronyms about his existence, love, boredom, nostalgia, time, Lisbon, and other notions which are inherent to his aesthetics of life. However, based on the same participants' interpretations and intentions, each edition was organized into distinct systems represented by different narratives and correlations among the sorted fragments. On rearranging Pessoa's fragmentary thoughts, the participants, as bricoleurs, were able to build new meaningful short stories from unrelated fragments of the transcribed editions. This aspect is visible, for instance, in most of the edition's descriptions, where small parts of different texts were interconnected in a way to describe each virtual edition's purpose. So, our second experiment was called Disquiet Variations, and it was about teaching with and learning from the virtual writing functions of the platform. So here it's important to say that these tests had a part developed into our platform, but we also used a writing processor to create new texts. So this one-day workshop took place on April 30th of this year, 2018. This workshop was designed as a creative writing workshop for English-speaking participants from varied academic and professional backgrounds and varied age groups. For most of them, the workshop was also their first introduction to Fernando Pessoa's work. The workshop started with a brief introduction to the platform, focusing particularly on its virtual writing functionalities. These functionalities include both what we describe as human writing and computer-assisted writing. In the first instance, interactors use only a text processor to produce their writing. In the second case, new texts were generated with the help of various electronic literature operations on the textual database. A selection of 10 texts from the Book of Disquiet in English translation by Richard Zenett was read out aloud by participants. Which paragraph was read by a different person. After this collective reading, participants were asked to look for seed fragments in the texts. These 10-word seed fragments became the starting point for the writing of new texts under different voices. After 90 minutes of individual writing, presentation, and discussion of the disquiet variations followed. The discussion was guided by the following questions. Why a particular seed fragment? How did the seed fragment help me invent a voice? What is the relation between my final text and my seed fragment? What is the relation between this new textual voice and the usual textual voice in my text? Did this exercise help me open up a new perspective on language? What have I learned about writing? What have I learned about pessoas writing? Beyond the general questions that would be relevant for any writing workshop, this first attempt at exploring the Book of Disquiet for further acts of writing helped us think about the writing constraints that should be part of the role-playing outer function in the archive. These constraints should be able to anchor each new writing act in pessoas' text while exploring the iterability of writing for the free play of signification. The idea of writing as an invasion of perspective and voice, central in pessoas' heteronymic processes, need to be more explicit as part of the rules of the game. We also need to open up the possibility of multiple hyperlinks to fragments from the disquiet, rather than one single link to the seed string of up to 10 words. Making each textual iteration resonate the source text while opening it up to new chains of language will be our challenge for the future development of the text processing interface as an enabling artifact within the archive. Concluding, through the integration of computational tools in a simulation space, the ELO archive provides an open exploration of the procedurality of the digital medium. As both conceptual and technical artifacts, the platform contains an innovative model for digital editing and digital writing. By recreating the universe of the Book of Disquiet according to ludic principles of textual manipulation, the platform has been exploring reading, editing, and writing practices according to a simulation rather than a representation rationally. The simulation of literary practices contained in the platform attempts to address the gap between digital humanities and electronic literature. If ELO archive instantiates creative practices, they will be better understood through practice. In this sense, these first activities have offered a better panorama of the platform as a dynamic literary mechanism. It also means that the next activities of this ongoing investigation, now developed in a more structured environment of analysis, will probably present more glimpses about how to improve the process of capturing and analyzing the ephemerality of these literary practices, as well as how to engage users in new forms of literary production. Thank you so much.